Hi students, and welcome to this lecture PowerPoint video on Shakespeare's The Tempest. This is the second week of readings in Unit 3 that deal with the thematics of virtue and corruption. So from this past week, Homer's The Iliad and the Odyssey, today with Shakespeare, and later this week with Goethe's Faust, all texts that deal with some variation on the tensions between virtue and corruption, whether that's a focus specifically on honor and shame, or loyalty and disloyalty. Heroism is a constant motif in many of these texts, and they all consider the ways in which moralistic virtues such as chivalry and heroism are linked and intertwined. So without further ado, Shakespeare's The Tempest. So a basic summary, in this play, we have, Homer, Shakespeare starts us in media res, in the middle here. Prospero and his daughter have been on this island for 12 years at the time of the play's beginning, when another shipwreck lands the treacherous brother Alonso and his son Ferdinand on the island as well. Prospero has at this point already used magic to enslave Caliban, who is to keep him and his daughter Miranda safe. Of course, Miranda and Ferdinand fall in love, and in the conclusion of the play, we see some emphasis on thematics of forgiveness as the brothers find reconciliation, as do some of the non-human characters. This is a play. It's categorized as one of Shakespeare's comedies in genres. We'll take a closer look at key themes. I mentioned forgiveness, reconciliation. We'll talk more in the coming slides about magic, family, treachery. Key passages, as always, an opportunity to pause this lecture PowerPoint video, return to your primary source, underline, highlight, do a close reading of two of these direct quotes, one from Miranda, one from Prospero, to analyze why they might be anchoring key passages for this play. Shakespeare was born in Stratford-upon-Avon, raised in a middle-class family. He married Anne Hathaway when he was 18 and moved to London in 1592, becoming a shareholder in the Lord Chamberlain Company. His play, Julius Caesar, was the first of many plays that were performed at the Globe Theatre. I've been to the Globe Theatre in London and can attest that it is in fact round, circular rather, in shape. Learn more, of course, about Shakespeare from the biographical headnote in your Norton. The Globe Theatre was owned by an actor. He was an actor-owner who was part of Shakespeare's troupe, a man named James Burbage. And this actor-owner faced opposition from puritanical city officials who sought to close theaters. He escaped civic legislation against theatrical performances by moving his playhouse across the Thames River and constructing the Globe. It was open to all classes. Anyone who wished to enter could pay a penny. And this heterogeneous mix is reflected in Shakespeare's plays. The Globe used almost no scenery, very few stage props, but utilized lavish costumes. With the Globe only being useful in the warmer months, the King's men began to use the Blackfriars Theater. In case you didn't know, the Globe was a open air theater, so it was certainly not agreeable to harsh London winters. So the King's men began to use the Blackfriars Theater for performances during the colder months. And The Tempest is the first known play to be written with this space instead of the Globe in mind. In addition to his sonnets and early narrative poems, much admired by aristocratic patrons, Shakespeare wrote approximately 38 plays and probably had a hand in a few others. Beyond his documented collaboration with John Fletcher, scholars today generally assume that Shakespeare's plays, like his contemporaries, were all collaborative to some degree, crafted in the back and forth of the theater and its demands. Despite the unparalleled success of his plays, Shakespeare seems to have valued them only in performance and never sought to have them printed. Early on, they were often published in unauthorized versions, and in some cases, based on actors' recollections of their lines. After Shakespeare's death in 1616, his friends published most of his plays in the collection we know as the First Folio in 1623, the basis for most later editions. There, the plays are divided into comedies, histories, and his play about England's recent kings and wars were known, of course, as the tragedies. Let's examine major thematics in The Tempest. Magic, revenge and forgiveness. We'll start there. Discussing the conversation between Miranda and her father, in which he corrects her for thinking the world was new when it was just new to them. This iconic line, "Oh, brave new world." This is a great starting off point for thinking about other scenes in the play that have a focus on who has power over another, right? So power and control as it relates to revenge and forgiveness. Magic and sorcery, of course, play an important role in this play too. The Tempest is one of many of Shakespeare's plays in which magic is a critical element that propels the plot, right? We have action moving forward because of magical elements. Prospero would not have made the shipwreck possible without conjuring. Ariel uses invisibility to trick other characters. Noted Shakespearean scholars Alan C. Desson and Leslie Thompson note that the word invisible appears the most in Shakespeare's The Tempest, even out of other Shakespearean plays using magic. So the ability to not be seen creates a staging problem when we think about the logistics of a play being performed. So it begs the question, how does an audience engage with a character who is to be invisible? How do you even show an invisible character to an audience? Perhaps Ariel enjoys more agency than the protagonist Prospero because of this invisibility. So whoever has access to magic has some measure of control in this play, and those that do not have magic, such as Miranda or even Ferdinand, often find themselves at the mercy of those with magical powers. Sycorax has died before the arrival of any humans on the island, but her powers, even posthumously, still play a major role in the text. Mother of Caliban, she was exiled due to the power of her witchcraft, and much time is spent in the play detailing her witchery as it relates to Prospero's claims to the island. So there's a quote here. It was mine art when I arrived and heard thee that made gape and pine and let thee out. So you might consider, as you're reading, how Prospero and Sycorax are foils to each other, and how the descriptions of their magic differs in this play. In terms of revenge and vengeance, and towards the end, of course, reconciliation, another major thematic at the heart of this play. The play is book-ended, meaning it begins and ends with this binary of vengeance and reconciliation. So early in the play, Prospero tells Miranda the story of Antonio's usurping of the state that Prospero had entrusted to his brother. Antonio is described as perfidious, false, ignoble in Prospero's recollections. This perfidy is the catalyst, the inciting incident that arouses the storm conjured by Prospero to land those who were false, their kin and crew, on the island so that he may finally enact revenge 12 years later. Also, Caliban wants revenge for Prospero taking over the island. When we get to Act 5 in this play, other instances of reconciliation at Prospero's hands surface. That of humans, Antonio, Sebastian, Alonso, the spirit Ariel. Of note, Caliban does not receive forgiveness at the end of this play. Perhaps most interesting is with regard to the epilogue, which is often read as the playwright himself speaking to his audiences upon the penning of what is believed to be the last play he wrote independently. And while Prospero does seek forgiveness at the end, it is possible Shakespeare does the same when he ends the play with, and I quote, "As you from crimes would pardoned be, let your indulgence set me free." Considering the role of colonization in this play, the location of the island is hard to pin down, which is perhaps one of the reasons that the Tempest has proved so resonant for different post-colonial scholarship. Is it in the Atlantic, where England was establishing its colonial presence, or was it in Ireland or the Americas? Caliban's refusal to accept Prospero's authority recalls a very strong Irish resistance to the English that were taking place as the English began to incite rebellion and incursions at the border. And his name, Caliban, a really perceptive reader will note it's an anagram for cannibal, which is a derivation of Caribe, which becomes a constant trope in early European accounts of the Americas. Caliban's mother, Sycorax's deity Setebos, also points to the Americas as a possibility. An account of Magellan's circumnavigation assigns that name to the god worshipped by the Patagonians. One of the key sources for the play is an account of the huge storm that shipwrecked an English vessel meant to relieve hapless colonists in Virginia on the shores of Bermuda in 1609 with, quote, "all aboard miraculously saved." Impacts on post-colonial literature. Caliban has taken on a variety of meanings in previous centuries, especially within a post-colonial framework. Because Caliban lived alone on the island until Prospero and Miranda landed, he has become a character marker for discussions of colonization, of imperialism, of the colonized, of the indigenous, particularly due to Prospero's poor treatment of him. Caliban, however, is not an innocent. In Act 1, Scene 2, he alludes to his attempt to sexually assault Miranda, but his enslavement at the hands of Prospero has been framed as an injustice in more contemporary readings of the play. So although, Caliban is no innocent himself, contemporary readings really frame him as a indigenous being to the island within this frame of Prospero as colonizer, right? Especially because Caliban remains unpardoned by Prospero at the end. So again, thinking about the anagram, Caliban, cannibal, other works of literature, and text and popular culture where we see Caliban surfacing here in the 20th century. Not all scholars agree on the value of reading The Tempest through a post-colonial lens, but it is clear that Caliban's character has continued to capture the imagination and the attention of readers and scholars alike, centuries away from the play's publication. And this brings us to your discussion questions for Shakespeare's The Tempest. How are magic and power connected to each other? So you're looking at potentially how power shifts throughout the play between characters based on magic. You could look at the role Iris plays in the realm of the gods. You can consider Caliban's role in the play. With number 2, this question asks you to consider where are all of the women in the play? Miranda is the only woman in the play, a human or spiritual deity. What might it have been like for Miranda to be on the island? You could discuss what it was like for her to be the only woman among men. You could consider whether her sex is a liability or an asset. I'm sorry, I just realized that I said that Miranda was the only woman, spiritual or human. That's incorrect, because Caliban's mother is mentioned in the play, but had already died in media res. But Miranda is the only human woman on the island, or in the text. And she certainly does not escape the gender norms imported by the shipwreck of the men who land there after she's been there for 12 years. She's 15 at this point. She landed on the island as a 3-year-old. And although she's compliant and sometimes depicted as subordinate, she can also be read as a partner in Prospero's plans after the second shipwreck. And of course, this quote here, despite being around so few characters, she is threatened with sexual assault by Caliban and is called upon to assert her virginity to Ferdinand in order for him to even consider her for marriage. She only speaks 3 times in that long final act where we see the climax and the resolution of the plot in the play. But we do see in Act 5 some of her most famous lines regarding a brave new world. So think about Miranda. Can Miranda be considered perhaps a flashpoint for a feminist critique? How does the lack of women in the play inform your understanding of The Tempest?